The Taliban today claimed they have taken control of Panjshir province, the last holdout of anti-Taliban forces in the country since the group's blitz across Afghanistan last month. Thousands of Taliban fighters overran 8 districts of Panjshir overnight, witnesses from the area said on Monday, speaking on condition of anonymity over safety fears. The National Resistance Front of Afghanistan, NRF, denied the claim, as it announced that 2 key members had been killed in fighting over the weekend. Taliban spokesman Zabihullah Mujahid issued a statement Monday, saying Panjshir was now under the control of Taliban fighters. However, resistance forces dispute the Taliban's claim, saying the province has not been captured. The Taliban haven't captured Panjshir. I am rejecting Taliban claims, National Resistance Front of Afghanistan, NRF. Spokesman Ali Mason told the BBC. Mason added that NRF fighters continue to fight and are present in all strategic positions. The group also said that 2 key members, spokesman Fahim Dashti and General Abdul Wadud Zara, had been killed in fighting over the weekend. The conflicting reports from Panjshir come a day after the NRF offered peace talks to the Taliban after the militants advanced deep into Panjshir. But in response, the Taliban warned the National Resistance Front, NRF, that they must surrender or face death as their victory is inevitable. That followed analysis that the resistance could collapse in a fight to the death, while a top U.S. general warned Afghanistan still faces a wider civil war that could fuel the resurgence of terror groups like ISIS. His stark warning came as the country's former Vice President Amrullah Saleh said Afghanistan was on the brink of collapsing into a large-scale humanitarian crisis, with food and money becoming increasingly scarce. The Taliban is pushing ahead to crush resistance forces defending the mountainous Panjshir Valley, led by Saleh and Ahmad Massoud, the son of legendary anti-Taliban commander Ahmed Shah Massoud. Thousands of Taliban fighters moved towards Panjshir from 4 directions on Sunday in an attempt to claim total rule of Afghanistan after they had defeated the NRF at mountain outposts, reports The Times. Massoud, the leader of the NRF, said in a Facebook post that he would stop the fighting and instead negotiate with the Taliban, but the Islamist militants were not willing to talk. Massoud said, "The NRF in principle agree to solve the current problems and put an immediate end to the fighting and continue negotiations. To reach a lasting peace, the NRF is ready to stop fighting on condition that Taliban also stop their attacks and military movements on Panjshir and Andarab," he said, referring to a district in the neighboring province of Baghlan. But in response, one of the Taliban's commanders, Maulawi Muhammad Farooq, told The Times, "Our message to the Panjshir resistance leaders is surrender. We don't want to kill you. But surrender you must. Our victory is inevitable." Both Saleh and Massoud have pledged they will never surrender to the Taliban, with Saleh tweeting last month that he would never, ever and under no circumstances bow to the Taliban terrorists. At the same time, the country is grappling with an impoverished economy, having been thrown into disarray by the fall of the Ghani government and the Taliban's seizure of power last month, with many banks in Kabul and other Afghan cities still shut and cash in short supply. Airport closures have also threatened humanitarian aid getting trough, with 1/3 of the country facing food and economic insecurity, according to the World Food Programme, although as of Saturday some flights resumed between Kabul and 3 major provincial cities. The Taliban, who rolled into Kabul 3 weeks ago at a speed that analysts say likely surprised even the hardline Islamists themselves, are yet to finalize their new regime but are seemingly trying to appear more moderate. In the 1990s, when the group last controlled the country, they enforced strict controls across society. Women and girls were denied work and education, men were forced to grow beards, and television and music were banned. In the weeks since they took power, signals have been mixed. Government employees including women have been asked to return to work, but some women were later ordered home by lower-ranking Taliban. Universities and schools have been ordered open, but fear has kept both students and teachers away. U.S. General Mark Milley questioned whether they can consolidate power as they seek to shift from a guerrilla force to government. "I think there's at least a very good probability of a broader civil war," said Milley, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, in a bleak assessment. That will then in turn lead to conditions that could, in fact, lead to a reconstitution of al-Qaeda or a growth of ISIS, Islamic State group, he told Fox News on Saturday. Afghanistan's new rulers have pledged to be more accommodating than during their first stint in power, which also came after years of conflict comprising the Soviet invasion of 1979, and then a bloody civil war. They have promised a more inclusive government that represents Afghanistan's complex ethnic makeup, although women are unlikely to be included at the top levels. But few in Panjshir, a rugged valley north of Kabul which held out for nearly a decade against the Soviet Union's occupation and also the Taliban's first rule from 1996 to 2001, seem to trust their promises. Taliban official Bilal Karimi reported heavy clashes in Panjshir on Sunday, and while resistance fighters insist they have the Islamists at bay, analysts warn they are struggling. The Italian aid agency Emergency said Taliban forces had reached the Panjshir village of Anaba, where they run a surgical center. Many people have fled from local villages in recent days, Emergency said in a statement on Saturday, adding it was continuing to provide medical services and treating a small number of wounded. Anaba lies 15 miles north inside the 71-mile-long valley, but unconfirmed reports suggested the Taliban had seized other areas too. The Taliban had reportedly gained control of 4 of the valley's 7 districts and captured administrative buildings in the capital of Bazarak, reports The Times. Bill Raggio, managing editor of the U.S.-based Long War Journal, said Sunday that while there was still a fog of war, with unconfirmed reports the Taliban had captured multiple districts, it looks bad. Both sides claim to have inflicted heavy losses on the other. The Taliban army has been hardened with 20 years of war, and make no mistake, the Taliban trained an army, Raggio tweeted on Sunday, adding that the odds were long for the Panjshir resistance. The Taliban army was injected with a massive amount of weapons and munitions after the U.S. withdrawal and collapse of the ANA, Afghan National Army, he added. Former Vice President Amrullah Saleh, who is holdout in Panjshir alongside Ahmad Massoud, the son of legendary anti-Taliban commander Ahmed Shah Massoud, warned of a grim situation. Saleh in a statement spoke of a large-scale humanitarian crisis, with thousands displaced by the Taliban onslaught. The Panjshir Valley, surrounded by jagged snow-capped peaks, offers a natural defensive advantage, with fighters melting away in the face of advancing forces, then launching ambushes firing from the high tops down into the valley. The United States invaded Afghanistan and toppled the first Taliban regime in 2001 in the wake of the 9/11 attacks by al-Qaeda, which had taken sanctuary in the country. Western governments now fear Afghanistan could again become a haven for extremists bent on attacking them. Washington has said it will maintain an over-the-horizon capability to strike against any threats to its security in Afghanistan. The international community is coming to terms with having to deal with the new Taliban regime with a flurry of diplomacy. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken is due to arrive on Monday in Qatar, a key player in the Afghan saga and the location of the Taliban's political office, though he is not expected to meet with the militants. He will then travel to Germany to lead a virtual 20-nation ministerial meeting on Afghanistan alongside German Foreign Minister Heiko Maas. United Nations Secretary-General Antonio Guterres is also set to convene a high-level meeting on Afghanistan in Geneva on September 13, to focus on humanitarian assistance for the country.